Okay, good morning, sisters and brothers. It's been a while. I got locked out on my channel because I didn't have a recovery phone number because my landline actually got screwed up and died. And I actually forgot to provide them with my new one, so I got shut out of my channel for, I don't know, it was quite a while before I actually was able to recover it. And then when I finally did get my channel back up and running, thinking of making another video, there was a death in my family, a very close loved one. And I don't think I'm going to speak on that. I'm not prepared to speak on it. If I do decide to speak on it, I feel that I really need to handle it with some dignity and some tact. Um, so just by way of an explanation, sorry about that, why I've been so long getting to a new video. I know that there's been others on my channel that have had the loss of loved ones, the most recent one being Shamar, who lost her mother-in-law. You have my deepest condolences to you and your family. I know it's hard. So with that, I could speak on 110 different topics today. So we're just going to go wherever we're gonna land, we'll land. Um, but when my channel went down, I had been preparing a study on Revelations 9:1. So that was over a month ago, month and a half ago. And I had that all prepared to go. And it was Revelation 9:1 about the angel that opens the bottomless pit, had the key. And she actually has the key to hell, death, and the grave. And we could identify her through the words there, as well as the words in Revelation 20 with the angel that comes down with the chain in her hand, which is the true word of God that binds um, that devil, Satan, Adam, the accuser. And through a series of words, we could have easily identified that it was indeed her who has the keys of hell, death, and the grave. And but that study was like over a month and a half ago, and since then I've lost all my tabs, all my information, and I moved on. So we might do it at some point in time. I don't know, but that was some time ago. So we have some new topics. I couldn't help but I read some different comments and different times I've heard it off the pulpit as well that we were to interpret the Bible and all of its meaning through a literal interpretation. So, for anybody who may not understand what the difference is between literal and allegorical, it means that if I look at that beast in Revelations that comes out of the sea with 7 heads and 10 horns, or crowns on the heads, and it's almost as large as Earth itself that comes out of the ocean, that I'm supposed to look at that in a very literal interpretation, that it's an actual 7-headed dragon, versus the allegorical interpretation, which means that it's representative of something else, and it's done in an allegorical style. So I couldn't help but read comments recently that said the Bible is to be interpreted literal. Literal has the connotation behind it also as a physical interpretation. The allegorical interpretation has the spiritual idea behind it, and we can prove that through a word. It's found in Strong's Greek 238, and we'll go there in a minute, but I'm not quite done. Um, I guess maybe I have to be because I can't remember. But yeah, it had to do with, and the reason why it was pushed so hard on us to interpret the Bible through a literal, through a physical sense, man sense, because your spiritual is a feminine sense to it. It's a feminine aspect. The spiritual is feminine in its representation, which is more the allegorical, and your physical is masculine, which is more of your literal interpretation. And the reason why we've had it hammered at us so bad to interpret it in this literal sense as opposed to the allegorical sense is what we're supposed to be interpreting in was because of at the time when the Nicene Council was determining what books would make up this written word of God. So men, mere mortal males, this group of the Nicene Council, determined what books was in fact, from God and what were not, but it was determined by men. And though they had this paradigm or, parameters that they had to determine that by, nevertheless, it was men who determined it and not God at all. But at that time, if I understand it properly, the Sanhedrin, which is a council of Jewish priests, it's a council made up of male Jews, and they're the priest caste, I guess, the Sanhedrin, I think, if I have it right. At the time I studied it, were lobbying or petitioning for a literal interpretation, and they were pushing it hard. They were saying, if you put this out, you are to say, and I'm just suggesting that this is probably what happened based on the information that I have, that they were saying, if you're going to put this out, whenever any of the men study the Bibles and do a write-up, because let's face it, women weren't allowed to do that, that they must do it with a literal sense in mind. They cannot do it in an allegorical frame of mind. And that was pushed from the beginning of this Nicene Council determining what books went in to make up what became known as the Holy Word of God. Now, at that time, the Sanhedrin pushed for a literal interpretation. Why? I mean, you have to ask these questions. And we're absolutely instructed to ask those questions in order to come to the truths. So you can say literal all you want. You have been brainwashed by a world of men, physical, that wanted it interpreted as the power of their God coming from their arm. And that's what the Bible says. The power of their God is in their arms. They do not know God in a spiritual context. And that's feminine. So let's look at that word, Strong's Greek 238. I do have it pulled up. Let's see here what we got. Not there. I have it back there, right there. So it's Strong's Greek 238, and this is what it says. Okay. We'll go up here. So it says, I speak allegorically. And it does lead us to that verse in Galatians 4:24. So let's quickly look at this. Okay, so we can pull that all into the context when we get to it, because I'm not going to get to it just yet. Just for the record, I've missed my sisters. I've missed spending time in the Word with my sisters. I hope you're all safe and I hope you're all doing well. And I thank so many of you for your kind words and of encouragement, and that you actually want me to put videos up to watch. I appreciate that. I would love to see my videos reach a much larger audience that are searching for the truth, and hopefully I can help them in some, even if it's a small way, find that truth. Anyway, Galatians 4:24, just wanted to say that these things are being taken figuratively. The women represent two covenants. One covenant is from Mount Sinai and bears children who are to be slaves. This is Hagar. Now, we discovered what Mount Sinai actually meant, and we didn't get our study completed. I'm not sure. I don't think we did. But we recognize that Sinai actually leads us to the word desolation, which again takes us to that verse, as we all know on this channel, to Isaiah 54, verse 1. Yet more are the children of the desolate spirit than of she who has a husband. Well, she who has a husband is the harlot spirit that does in fact bow and is in bondage with her children to the law of man, the man-made law system, which is chaos. It creates iniquity. We know all of this. The Bible, we have studied it in this context, and we are absolutely correct in what we know as the truth. We have been able to validate it. But the word Sinai did so lead us to the word desolation. And we see Sennacherib going up to the Lord, she who sits between the cherubim, which the cherubim themselves may well have been idolic images, idolatry images themselves. And we studied them in videos. And we know that it was King Solomon who created these images. So they had to put that she sat between the cherubim and shook her head. The children have come to the birth, and there's not strength to deliver them. So we're looking at women delivering children into salvation, into the truth. And Sennacherib was going up to her high places, and he was cutting them down. And so it ends up making her a desolate spirit, which is what the word Sinai actually leads us to, which is in where the man-made law eventually comes from, the dispensation of the law of man, not the law of God. And we can get into that a bit more. And then it says, now Hagar stands for Mount Sinai in Arabia and corresponds to the present day Jerusalem, which is current day physical man's idea of this male God, because she is in slavery with her children. So it's telling you Hagar is the bondwoman. She's the one in bondage with her children. And what does it say? So I also have begun to speculate that Hagar actually gave birth to a male and Sarah gave birth to a female, which is why Abraham thought that his son should have been, because he actually puts it to God and he says, well, what about my other son through Hagar? I can't remember his name. Was it Ishmael? What was Hagar's son's name? And he wanted him blessed. And I truly believe now, looking at the context, that Sarah had a daughter, because that is so where the seed comes through. That the birthright absolutely belongs to the female and never belonged to a male. Never. And they got the birthright being held by Joseph. Well, Joseph represented the feminine, which is also the northern kingdom, which is Ephraim, the firstborn daughter of mother's womb. So we know all of these things. And if you don't know them and you're going to post a comment making some comment because you haven't looked at the videos, and you know what? Don't bother. Go back and watch the videos before you even think about it. Because we have addressed all of these issues. We have. So, I want it to go down to this verse, and then we're going to go back to that word. And we're going to read this very briefly, and then we're going to move along. So, Hagar and Sarah. So, this is what it says. Tell me, ye that desire to be under the law, do ye not hear the law? Do you listen to what the law is saying, women? You're under bondage of their law that came from Mount Sinai, which makes you a desolate spirit. You get it? They told the potter, the maker, the creator, she had no power over her own creation. That's her children. And then, like Nebu, all these men will put their hands up and say, look at all that I, man, male, physical, has made. To which she then cuts Nebu away, for saying the exact and claiming the exact same thing. He was saying, man has done it all. You watch a man claim that we women don't do nothing. I saw this comment and I couldn't help but reflect on the comment. I never went in and watched the video. And he said, everybody wants to save the world, but nobody wants to help mother do dishes. I thought that was so deep. And you know what? They still don't get it. They're all Nebus. Nebuchadnezzar, look at everything I have made. But you all forget who gave life to everything that could do everything. That's why she's able to say, without me, nothing exists. Nothing. Because I gave life to you. You get it? I gave life to those kings. I gave life to everything. And without me, nothing exists. Yet you told yourself, you taught yourself, you didn't have to fear me or anything about me. And Nebu does the same. Nebuchadnezzar did it. And you know what she did? She cut him away from his kingdom. And he became a beast, like an animal. That's just what the men of this world is. We're living in a beast system. All these men think it's them, them, them. I'm not made in my Father's image. I'm made in my Creator's image, my mother, who forms the clay. Yeah. And you denied her. And you told her she had no power. And you denied her under your man-made religious law and law system. That's what it tells you. You turned everything upside down and told the potter, the maker, the creator, the mother, that she had no power over her own children. That's what you told her. And if that doesn't reason, it's because you're not listening to wisdom. So tell me, ye that desire to be under the law, you women in religion, willing to go, well, women don't have rights. We're not supposed to want them. That's because the man-made God told you that. The power in his arm, and he created violence to do it. We're going to show you that. Do ye not hear the law? Listen to it. For it is written that Abraham had two sons, one by the bondmaid and the other by the free woman. Well, I don't think it was two sons. I think he had a son by the bondmaid and he had a daughter by the free woman. But she, or he, who was of the bond woman was born after the flesh. That's male. This is why we can pinpoint it as male and female. Flesh represents the male. And if you don't think so, look at the power that he's got physically. Woman's power tends to be more spiritual in aspect. And that is the only way you were to worship God was through the spirit. You weren't to worship it through the physical. But that's why the boys love to say that man upstairs. I didn't know God was the same thing as a man. I didn't know that. And that's why they say it, because it empowers them to teach you this man God and subject women to their religious law and law system. But you can't see that. I so wish my videos could reach a much larger audience of those with willing hearts, open ears, open eyes to see and hear the truth and to understand it through wisdom. So, for it is written, but he who was of the bondwoman was born after the flesh, but she of the free woman was by the promise. So, we're coming up, actually, Jesus is the flesh. And that's who we worship in bondage, us Christians anyway. There's, of course, Allah that they worship. There's Yahweh, and there's other male gods out there that the world has thrown at you. This is the web of lies that they web together when they practice to deceive. But they promised each other, all these men that we're going to take a look at again, that they would hold together in this religious lying system. And if you don't believe that that's what they weaved over us, this web of lies, which is a veil, stopping us between our God, it's blocking us from our real God, this web of lies, which is the veil over the land. Um, Look at what's written in our history. Look at it. Look what they wrote over time. They made sure to remove the feminine just about in every case. And when they did speak about her, it was very negative. So they practiced this. They practiced this web of deception. And we know it's a web of lies that cannot hold a body together, which means you will die under this law and lie. So which things are an allegory? So let's read 23 again of Galatians 4. But he who was of the bondwoman was born after the flesh, but she of the free woman was by promise. So again, I was saying, Jesus says, you can blaspheme me and get away with it. Why? Because he's of the flesh. That's why you can blaspheme him and get away. You can blaspheme the Son of Man and get away with it. But when the Holy Spirit, which is the free woman by the promise, when this true spirit of the law shows up, the witness also shows up and shows you these truth, he says, you will not blaspheme her and get away with it. Now, that's your promise that was gave, the spirit. It was not flesh that was gave of a man that they made on an idol, on a cross. You do not wash in blood, you wash in water. The water is allegorical to her law and her word that you denied. You turned everything upside down and told her that she had no power over her own creation. I'm not made in my Father's image, though I love him dearly. I'm made in my mother's image, who I also love dearly. But you denied her, and you took her rights away from her. And you act as if you're the ones empowered to do so. Well, you're not. You're of the flesh when you do that. You are not of the promise. So, but she is of the free woman by promise, which things are an allegory. For these are the two covenants, the one from Mount Sinai, desolation, which gendereth to bondage, which is the abomination of desolation, which is a man worshiping a man inside of a man. The harlot spirit exalted in there is what allows him to worship himself as God. She gives him that power to do that. But it also leads to woman's desolation. She has no rights under his law, his physical flesh law, removing her right over her own creation that she creates. She carries the burden daily. And that's the deliverance of children into this life, to give you another chance at redemption, to find the truth. And then she provides it for you in the end. So, but she is of the free woman who was by promise, which things are an allegory, for these are the two covenants. The one from Mount Sinai, which gendereth to bondage, which is Hagar. For this Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia, and answereth to Jerusalem, which now is, and is in bondage with her children. So these religious lies and laws of the physical law representation of this physical male God is what puts us in bondage. We're in a law of bloodshed, which is also why you receive the washing of blood. You're stained in blood. You're not actually washed in it. You're washed in water. Isaiah 55, come to the waters, my dear daughter, and I will wash the blood off of you. Isaiah 4:4, and she says, my daughters. And Isaiah 55, come and simply believe my truth, my law. I wrote it on your heart. You'll know it when you hear it. These men don't want to hear it. They're too built up in pride, like their father Adam, the accuser before them, accusing the woman in the courts of heaven, where he exalted himself too, where he says, now I will be like the Most High. And then when he falls, because no scabbard is found for his sword, that means a word. Your sword is your word. Sword is allegorized by, word is allegorized by sword. In this case, his is very much one of bloodshed. And it says no place was found for him anymore in the heavens when he actually falls to the earth. And Jesus, the idol, the physical idol, actually says, I saw Satan fall like lightning. That's actually the first Adam who falls from her throne, where he says, I will be like the Most High. And then it speaks in Isaiah 14, yet you are nothing more than a man. Oh, but that man upstairs, God. Nope. It is just a man. It isn't God. Never was. God on this earth, the presence of God on this earth, which was a representation of God in the earth, was the women inside the nation of Israel that the men cut down. Sennacherib went up to her high places and cut her trees down. They cut them out of the house in the forest of Lebanon, where the women are identified as going up to what's it called? Beth Horon, Upper Beth Horon, Lower Beth Horon. Upper Beth Horon would have been where the women were found washing the garment in the pure water in the upper pool, which is where the government of God met in the house in the forest of Lebanon. But they cut that down and they bring it all the word down to the lower pool, which is nothing but filth, into this physical temple of a man as your Lord and God. Well, I have a female temple, which is spiritual, which in that representation is higher than the male's God. And that's the house in the forest of Lebanon, and she will be like the fuller's soap when she comes. And the women were the ones identified as washing the garment and keeping it clean with the law of heaven, and we know it belongs to the mother. The law did. It was to come from her tongue, and the father was to exalt it, and he did not. He chose to accuse her in the beginning. So, for this Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia, and answereth to Jerusalem, which now is, and is in bondage with her children. But Jerusalem, which is above, is free, which is the mother of us all. For it is written, rejoice, thou barren, the desolate spirit that no man sought a covenant with. He wanted one with the harlot that would exalt him as God. I will be like the Most High. Yet look at you. You are nothing more than a weak man. Isaiah 14. Break forth and cry, thou that travailest not, for the desolate hath more children than she which has a husband. So it's the harlot building this male idol up with all the children, which in fact she hands over to Baal, who is the king of Babylon. She's the harlot, handing her children over. Yet daily we bear the burden to give man another opportunity at finding the greater truth that will permit him access into the heavens once again. Which right now, you look around you, and so many of these male-oriented channels focus on themselves. They are quite self-concentric. They're quite arrogant. They love the he pronoun. It's though their words are like butter, in their hearts are drawn sword against the true living God, which is our mother wisdom, which gives life to the heavens and everything in them. Is your idea, because nothing can come without life. Nothing. And without her, you have nothing, though you denied her. So, but as then, okay, we'll keep going here. Which has a husband. Now we, brethren, we sisters, as Isaac, our sister, was, are the children, are the daughters of the promise. We represent the spirit. We're the spirit of the promise. We are. It's our law. And we are witnessing to the fact that this law is not our law. It is man's law, and it's a bloodshed law, which their idol actually represents. You're washed in blood. You're not washed in blood, you're stained in it. But as then, he that was born after the flesh, Adam, persecuted her, the woman, by accusing her that was born after the spirit, even so it is now. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that was a long look. It was just supposed to be brief. So we're going back to 238. Oh my gosh, where is it? I just had it. Okay, I hit on it, didn't I? To take me in here. Yes, I did. So we'll backtrack to the word, and we'll take a look at the spiritual. To look at it in a spiritual sense, these words is to look at the allegory, not the literal. Literal makes you physical. Literal makes you in blood, violating mother's covenant. That's all that represents when we study it. So 238 Strong's Greek, to speak allegorically, to interpret allegorically. And it had one reference in the New, which was the verses we just looked at in Galatians 4:24, which is also another way that we found the key of David. We understood that the daughter of Zion was the key of David. Without her, you can't open no door. You cannot open the birthing canal. She alone does it. The children have come to the birth, but there's not strength to deliver, because they had cut the wise women down of the land. We see men like Mordecai taking possession of the next generation of little girls, like Esther to teach her how to bow to a king. Had the mothers been present, they would not. So you also get this understanding that he was also teaching her in a sexual manner, Mordecai. That should have never come from a man teaching a woman how to sexually bow to this king. And we know that that was all there in the context. It simply is. The mother would have never taught her daughter such a thing. These wise women would have taught them strength. So we're going to look at that, and then we're going to move on to what actually is supposed to be strong in our kingdom, which is this is what we're going to look at next, is a representation of what the heavens look like that we actually lost. So word origin of 238 is derived from this Greek word, I can't say it, allos, which means other, and agorio, to speak in the assembly. So that's what she says in, see, I didn't have this pulled up. In Psalm 116, she's speaking in the assembly of God. So when the spiritual component comes into existence, she's heard in the assembly of God based on what we read in Psalm, is it Psalm 116? Okay. Oh, I hit 115, of course. That's not Bible Hub. Where's my Bible Hub? Right there. And it's actually Psalm 116, so I gotta go ahead one. Okay. So she says in the assembly of God, she's speaking in the assembly of God. They got it he, right? He. It's not he, it's she who is speaking. She's only going to hear the spiritual component speaking out of the dust of the earth. She is not going to hear the physical, where man points to his arm and says, "That's God," and then says, "That man upstairs." Well, is it a man or is it a God we're talking about? Which is it? Well, we know it's just a man when he falls because of Isaiah 14. I will be like the Most High, yet you are nothing more than man. Look at you, how thou art fallen from the heavens. And look at you. Have you become weak like one of us? You're not a God. Look at you. You are, in fact, nothing more than a mortal man. You are not God. You're not. Which is why, again, they point at and they go, "The man upstairs." Well, you're not supposed to say that. God says, "You saw no image of me, make no image of me, neither male nor female, but you are to follow the laws off of my daughter's tongue," which you didn't do. Which is why this guy finally comes down, because he says, "We have hid ourselves under a refuge of lies, and with the womb of Sheol are we at agreement." Well, and when the overflowing scourge comes in, they can't catch us. They can't. Well, that overflowing scourge is the army of God. The witness is coming in. They have caught them in their lie. And it says in the Old Testament, "We hid when we did it. How can they catch us?" They can't catch us. You can't reason this out. These women on planet Earth raised up under Baal's lies can't possibly be brainy enough or wise enough because they don't even know their mother. Well, the only way I knew mother is because she chose to reveal herself to me. And she did it when I went into great mourning over this lie. Something here isn't adding up. Nothing makes sense. The men don't want to address it. The men don't want to talk about it. But mother did. Mother, mother filled my vessel with the truth because I was willing to hear it. So, Psalm 116, she says this. Um, yeah, in the presence of all her people. So she says, "I will fulfill my vows to the Lord in the presence of all of her people." So that is the assembly of God. And I believe we looked at this in one of the older videos on Ruth Abbey, that it actually is the assembly represented here. I'm not going to go in here because I've talked long enough, I think. But she says, "I will take the cup of salvation. I will call upon the name of the Lord. I will pay my vows." What's the paying of her vows? It's the restoration of mother's house back to the covenant. That's her vows. So in order to do that, she had to drink down the wrath as well, which means going through the centuries, being asleep, the millennia, the thousands of years that we've been asleep, um, which we looked at in Romans. They actually go to sleep in the religious law and law system of man in order to continue to carry the burden forward, which is the deliverance of children. Only she alone can do this. Why now do I see every man standing around with his hands on his hips, as if he's a woman in travail that can give life? He can't give life. She's the one alone appointed to do this. And that's her vow, promising to give it back, which is why we can link Shebna in Isaiah 22 as being the one that the key of David is actually placed on her shoulder. The key of David is she, and she alone has the womb to open it or close it, to give life or death. And so you get the idea that we're dead in the womb, which is Sheol, identified as Sheol. We do not come to life because we refuse the law of wisdom. So I will pay my vows unto the Lord now in the presence of all of her people, in her congregation, in her assembly. Precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of all of her saints, all of her holy ones, those who attain to the truth. O Lord, truly I am thy servant, who was God's servant, Israel, the woman's seed, Sarah El, she who wrestles. Well, she's wrestling with him, Jacob, who stole her birthright. He wrestled and he stole her name, Israel. Man is not the birthright holder. It always was her allotment. And it is her right to rule over her own creation, her children. So, O Lord, truly I am thy servant. I am thy servant, and the daughter of thy servant, Israel. Thou hast loosed my bonds. I will offer to thee the sacrifice of thanksgiving, and I will call upon the name of the Lord. I will pay my vows, and I will restore your house, dear mother, now in the presence of all your people. So she's only hearing us when we're actually in the spiritual connotation, the allegorical connotation. She's not listening when we're going literal, when it's blood, when it's a male idol. She's not even hearing you. She's only hearing us when we're speaking spiritually. So she says, I hear one speaking out of the dust of the earth. And she's hearing that one representing Israel, her people, her daughters, and her sons. She's only hearing them when they have her covenant on their tongue and are speaking the truth. And we know it because we're going to go to Proverbs 1. So I am thy servant. So it's the daughter Israel herself speaking, or just Zion, the branch, her branch that she chooses to rule through. I will offer to thee the sacrifice of thanksgiving. I'm not offering up blood. I'm offering up great thanks unto my mother wisdom for teaching me the greater truths. I will pay my vows unto the Lord now in the presence of all of her people and in the courts. So we're in a court case as well, which is about the splitting of the pleasant land, which is considered the controversy of Zion, the controversy of the branch, the court case of the branch. In the courts of the Lord's house, in the midst of thee, O Jerusalem above, she is the mother of us all. Praise ye the Lord. Praise ye her. Praise ye wisdom, peace, and not in a way that you think. She says, I never asked blood of you. I asked of you only what you were willing to give, which was a free will offering of thanks. That's all I asked. I just asked you to be thankful. I didn't ask for bloodshed. I didn't. I didn't ask for worship. I asked you just simply to be thankful. That's it. That's all she asked for. And you couldn't even do that. You know what you did? You turned everything upside down, made yourself a male idol, and you refused to follow in the way of mother wisdom, which was found at her daughter's tongue, which was known as the presence of God on earth. Now we're going to go to Proverbs 1 and we're going to read and we're going to back up what we just said. And now, because I've talked so long, it's probably going to be a very short reading. So I have Proverbs 125. Yeah. So yeah, for most of you that's been with me for a while, probably beginning in Ruth Abbey, you are probably finally getting a handle on a lot of this understanding, and it does take years to do it. Now, I said I've been at it for, I forget now how long I said I've been at it, 13 to 15 years. And that doesn't mean I just accepted Jesus in 2011. Okay, that's not what that means. What it means is I began to study the truth, the truthful aspects of the allegorical understanding when I fell to my knees and I said, God, there's something wrong with what they're teaching me off the pulpit. And if I mean nothing more than that I've got to follow his head and be treated as if I'm nothing more than a possession, then why did you even bother making me? And that's when I came to the end of myself. Prior to that, I received Jesus and Christianity at the age of 11. So from the age of 11 to 2011, all of my understanding, and I had a great deal of understanding in the scriptures and whatnot, old and new, but more so in the new, because that was what man taught me to know. I really wasn't allowed to study anything any more than what he'd already validated as being okay. Okay, you can know that. This you can't know because I haven't told you that that's what it means, so you can't know it. You know, you're not you got to listen to me. I'm validating that that's the truth right there. You can't go out and verify that yourself. No. So what I knew up to 2011 was all of that. So I was deep into Christianity, deep. I knew it. Front and back, baby. I knew it. Which was really just a stepping stone. Because had I not known all those verses and everything that Christianity preached, I wouldn't be able to as the advocate in some sense, be able to respond to all of their claims and say, and refute it and rebuke it and tell them, no, boys, you've got it all wrong. And we get why you've got it wrong, because you love the idea of worship. You do. You love the idea. You can deny this, but their hearts puff up every time they go, hey, Father, hey, Son, his woman's head. There's a puff, there's an arrogance, there's a pride in the heart, and you can see it in them. Watch it in them. They build a man up. There's no way they're going to come away from that truth. It tickles their ears. It's like honey on their tongue. And it says it drips from their mouth like butter, just like the harlot that they're in cahoots with. And in their hearts are drawn swords against you. Drawn words against you. And we saw these drawn words as arrows off of a new covenant, which is a lying covenant, shot by Baal, the king of Babylon, your husband, bridegroom, Lord and master, Lord of Dung, another word for him, which is another name for the solar calf deity, straight out of the land of Egypt. Balaam and Balak sent the harlots, represented as the serpents on the ground, and Moses was instructed by the true presence of God, the true God on earth, make a serpent and wrap it around the pole, and tell the men, if you look to that one, which was wise women inside the nation of Israel, you will live. You will live under their law. But under this harlot's law that Baal and Balaam is sending in to bite the men with, poison them with, you will die under that law. You will not be permitted in the heavens. And it is so about the law system. Who do you think the Antichrist is? The Antichrist is the antinomian against her law. The law came from the mother, and the father was to back that up, and he did not. He turned and he accused her so he could take her throne of power and deceive. To be a thief in the New Testament means to practice to deceive. A thief. Thou shalt not steal. You're a thief and a liar, and you have practiced to deceive, so you could steal her goods and her right to write the law. And look around you, that's what they've done. Yet you relish the law. Women in religion, you watch them. We can't ask for our rights. None calleth for justice. No. So let's begin here in Proverbs 1 and get an understanding here that we don't have. Now, let me pull up. Oh my gosh, how long have I gone for? Not quite an hour yet. Okay, so not so bad. So we're going to begin in Proverbs 1, the beginning of knowledge. All right? The Proverbs of Solomon? No, not Solomon. The son of David, king of Israel. No, these are the Proverbs of wisdom herself when she was on earth, which is the Qoheleth. That is the office of the Qoheleth, found in Ecclesiastes 12 that they call the preacher. And it was so her job to set the Proverbs in order so that she could ascertain what the true law system of earth was to look like, which also makes her a witness to the truth, which is going to allow the so-called overflowing scourge, which is the army of God, to actually wipe the wicked out. So again, in Isaiah 28, I think it is, they say we have hid ourselves under a refuge of lies. Well, when you look that up, it means a male idol. They hid themselves under a male idols because their attempt is to ensnare us witnesses, us feminine aspect called the spirit, which is the rule in the earth. The spirit rules the earth. So when the harlot is bowing to man, she's allowing Baal to write the law when she's playing his harlot, which is also the abomination of desolation, a man inside of a man. We've already proved that. Anyway, so but wisdom is an office, I believe, and it's called the Qoheleth. It's an office, and it's a female office. So when she sets the case in order, she sets the Proverbs in order, and she proves what the law system on earth was supposed to be And as a witness, she proves that that is not what man implemented. He implemented his own law. And in this chapter is going to tell us how he brought that about. So Proverbs 1, the Proverbs of wisdom. To know wisdom and instruction is to perceive the words of understanding. Yeah, I'm glad we know her. Right, girls? Right, women? Right, daughters? Right, mothers? I'm glad we know her. We finally know her. To receive the instruction of wisdom, justice, very important word, and judgment and equity, fairness for all, not just one gender over the other, not just for the boys, but also for the girls. It's called equality. To give subtlety to the simple and to the young person, knowledge and discretion. Now, they've got young man because they love to put man in there. And it would be great if it was the men, but without the women to bring a new creation into existence, that means new children who receives her law, making her no longer a desolate spirit, is the idea of a new creation. Is children that are actually hearkening to the mother's law is the idea of birthing a new creation. Man don't do this, sons don't do this. It never was supposed to be him. It's her. It's always been her. So, for receiving wise instruction in righteousness, justice, and integrity, I'm just reading a slightly different rendering here. For teaching shrewdness to the inexperienced, knowledge and discretion to the young person, particularly to our women. Because when they're willing to play a man's harlot, guess what? He's going to put that yoke on your neck and he's going to tell you that he's God and has the right to do that. And their arrogance is going to permit them to do it. And they get that arrogance by you building him up in it. A wise woman will hear. Now it says man. I'm going to just shift it over to a woman because I do think it's the women. A wise woman will hear and will increase her learning. And a woman of understanding shall attain unto wise counsel. Only when we begin to listen to our mother wisdom do we actually begin to receive the wise counsel of her and what reasons out and what makes sense. Without her counsel, we will have no understanding. We will have nothing but his understanding tells us he's our head and we can't use this head for nothing. And what does wisdom say? To understand a proverb and the interpretation, the words of the wise in their dark sayings. So as we understood what the dark sayings was the riddles in the scriptures that men tell us that when we hand them these books in Isaiah 29, if you want to go look it up, you hand it to a man and he says, oh, but I cannot tell you what it means. You hand it to a supposed learned preacher or minister or priest, whatever. And you know what he does? He says, but I cannot tell you what it means. The words of the book is sealed. They're sealed. Why? Because they're not willing to listen to wisdom. They don't want to hear from her because he is God. Without wisdom, nothing is made. Nothing, not a thing. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools, idol worshipping fools, despise wisdom, she, and instruction, who is our mother. So, my son will say, my daughter will say, hear the instruction of thy father, and forsake not the law of thy mother. So this is what they'll excuse this with. They'll say, well, they mean the law in the home. And some will even say, no, not even that. They won't even give you that. It doesn't mean what it's saying. That's what they'll simply tell you. Now, when you go in and you look at these two words, the instruction for the father and the law of the mother. Now, let's look at the law of the mother first, and then we'll look at the instructions of the father, okay? And I'm just going to insert the heaven, what the heaven pictured as that we lost, and not the one that they actually tried to tell us, right? So we go to the law of the mother. The law of the mother is 8451, Strong's Hebrew. So I'm probably going to save the reading of this entire chapter for another video. It's getting quite long, and I do have things I got to get to. So what does the law here mean? It's 8451 Torah. Well, that's a Hebrew word for their law. But it's her law. Instruction, teaching, a precept. So we're getting the fact that it actually is the law, the precepts, and the statutes. Okay? That's actually what the mother's law is here. It's your law system that the world was supposed to be founded upon. So what's the instructions of the father? The instructions of the father tells you what he's supposed to do. Chastisement, reproof, warning, instruction, and he's even got restraint. This was his job. The father's job was to uphold the mother's statutes and law, and to chastise, reproof, and warn, and instruct, and restrain those who were not listening to her law. Now that's what the father was supposed to do. The law system was to come from mother's tongue. It was not to come from the father. The father was to enforce the mother's law. Now that's what his job was. It was not to take charge of her law and to subjugate her under his wicked law, which comes by way of how? How does his law system come by way? Keep reading, it tells us. For they shall be an ornament of grace unto thy head and chains about thy neck, my dear daughter. My daughter, my sons, if sinners entice thee, consent thou not. You wicked men, don't consent, or ye righteous sons is what you should be. But you're wicked if you are enticed by this law system of man, who says, if they say, come with us, let us lay wait for blood. Innocent blood is your idea here. Let us lurk privily. Let us hide. Let us hide ourselves as we commit these obscenities against her law and put in play ours. But what? It says, let us lurk privily for the innocent without cause. They went after the innocent without cause. They had no reason to go after them except for pride. And, watch this, let us swallow them up alive as the grave, and whole as those that go down into the pit. We shall find all precious substance. There's your thief. We shall fill our houses with spoil. Thou shalt not steal. Look the word up, steal, in the New Testament. It means deceive. You do not deceive. To deceive means to steal what rightfully belongs to another. In this case, her under the law. So they say, let us swallow them up alive. We shall find all precious substance. We shall fill our houses with spoil. We'll become rich, and they'll become the poor ones. We'll steal all of her goods, and we'll tell her she has no rights to goods, which is why the women were taking bribes to sew handkerchiefs to the armholes to prevent the spirits that would fly, so they could save alive the spirits, the ones that should not have been saved, right? And to force the ones that should have had right to these bodies to fly away. They're not entitled to them. If you're a good person, no body. That's what they were saying when they were sewing those handkerchiefs to the armholes. And they were taking in payment, they were taking bribes of barley, handfuls of barley. Why? Because the men were starving the women out under the law. And they were using violence to do it through. Yeah. So we shall find all precious substance. We shall fill our houses with spoil. I can't understand Christians who thinks electing billionaires to represent them, no different than Canada either. A boy who came from plenty. How do you expect them to ever understand your plight in life? They will never understand. They became rich under their law system, and I wouldn't want to know any more than that. The Bible tells us how the rich become rich. They walk on the little person to do it. We shall find all precious substance. So cast in thy lot among us. Let us all have one purse. My son, my daughter. Yeah. God says, I will wash the blood off of my daughters. Why are you guilty of blood, daughters? Because you're walking in their man-made law and religious law system. And you're allowing all this bloodshed, you really are, by not taking control of your own house and your own creation that you created. We have carried the burden. Daily, she has borne the burden. That is the deliverance of children. She's the one that carries that burden. And it is on her, it says, the salvation belongs to this Lord. And that's the feminine aspect, to deliver her children. And that's why they have carried the burden. Now they went to sleep in this burden, so that in order to be able to continue to carry that burden, they had to go to sleep in the religious law and law system. When they wake up, they part the Red Sea, the water, which is the law system in the peoples and amongst the peoples, all of us on planet Earth, supporting this horrible law system written by rich men at the top who stole what did not belong to them, used great bloodshed in the beginning to apparently do that with and accomplish it. And then they practiced to deceive through deception to continue to steal what didn't belong to them. If they say, come with us, let us lay wait for blood, let us lurk privily for the innocent without cause, let us swallow them up alive. Okay, I read all that. My son, walk not thou in thy way with them, or my daughter. That means following after a religious lie and an idol of a man God, which is your literal interpretation, which is your physical interpretation. It is not your spiritual representation. So refrain thy foot from their path, for their feet run to evil, and they make haste to shed blood. You're actually stained in blood because of religion. Surely in vain the net is spread in the sight of any bird, and they lay wait for their own blood, they look privily for their own lives. So are the ways of every one that is greedy of gain. Oh, if that doesn't represent our world's law today, I don't know what does. Which taketh away the life of the owners thereof. So it's telling you the ones who's claiming to be the owners and possessors of this world, and currently they're the men. Baal, which is also your king of Babylon. You go look this word up, it's Baal. Husband, bridegroom, Lord, and master. It also takes their own lives away. And they're too dumb to know it. Their snare that they laid for us daughters to fall into, they have fell into it and they do not escape. You know why? Because of their bloated pride, which is a definition of Satan. Satan's name actually takes you back to the word Baal, Beelzebub, husband, bridegroom, the first accuser of the woman because he did not want to receive her law of peace, though she is the mother of us all. Wisdom crieth without, she uttereth her voice in the street, she crieth in the chief places of concourse, in the openings of the gates. That's the birthing canal. In the city she uttereth her word, saying, how long, ye simple ones, you fools? She calls you a fool because you can't reason. You don't want to hear the simple truth. Why now do I see every man standing around with his hands on his hips as if he can give life? That's these men on the pulpits. That's these idol-worshipping fools. She calls you a simple one because you can't reason the truth out. The children have come to the birth, and there is not strength to deliver. And it's not because men deliver the children, it's because women do, and you're not listening. And the scorners delight in their scorning, and fools do hate knowledge. There's your word, fool. These are fools. Idol worshippers are called fools. You get your idol of the Antichrist in Daniel 2 being built up by every successive kingdom. They were building this male idol of a male god up. His name is Jesus, Allah, Yahweh, which is why you will readily receive him when he appears on scene. Christians teach that they're gonna know or they're not gonna be present. Yeah, you are. Because you're the ones that's gonna give the Antichrist his power. You were warned not to build an idol up, neither male nor female, and you built a male idol up. You were, however, to receive the law off of daughter Zion's tongue. Yeah, and you were to offer up hearts of thanksgiving, not blood. God says, I asked no blood of you. I never did. The creation of the Antichrist is the creation of the antinomian. He's against her law. Yeah, he won't receive it. Which is Jesus, Allah, Yahweh. He has horns like a lamb, but speaks like a dragon. You women don't have no rights. Man's your head. Those are dragon's words. Iniquity is shaped by the law. Yep, this land is full of it. They believed in a physical God, not a spiritual one. that was to be in here, and the ruler. The power of their God is in their arm. And then they say, that man upstairs. But you can't reason. Proverbs 1. So I'm just going to recap right quick here. Mother's law and father's instructions to enforce that law. But he didn't. Strong's Greek 238. Allegorical, to study allegorical means spiritually, to study spiritually, which is what we do. The Sanhedrin advocated for a literal interpretation and not an allegorical interpretation, which then begs the question, why? So, this is what our heaven should look like. And I'll end on this note. Okay, so we finished reading in Proverbs 1, verse. Okay, we're going to read 23 too, and we'll finish there. So, how long, ye simple ones, will ye love simplicity? So it also says, how long, you foolish ones, you knave ones, you fools? Will you love simplicity? And the scorners delight in their scorning. That's men. Delighting at their hate. They shot at the daughters as they passed over the wall. Shooting at the daughters, the branch, the scepter that mother ruled through. Mother wisdom was to rule through. And these sons rejected it when they made their own covenant, which is identified as a bow. And Baal is the one shooting it, and he's shooting hateful words at his sister. They hated her without a cause. It was pride. The pride of man. We got it all figured out. Turn you at my reproof. Behold, I will pour out my spirit unto you, and I will make known my words unto you. And she does that through us daughters, who are in fact representations of the Creator in the way that the Creator will lay out the new heavens, which is through the daughter's law system and words on her tongue. And that's represented as the Spirit giving you these words. Yeah. So we're going to end reading at that verse, and we'll pick it up next video, hopefully. We'll pick up Proverbs 1 again, and we'll begin at verse 24. And we'll throw in there what we can. Now, the heavens that we lost, the image of the heavens that we lost. I have been reading the Canadian anthem, and do I have it here? No, I don't. So we'll pull up the Canadian anthem, and I have read other anthems, so I'm not just picking at the Canadian anthem, it's through them all. This is the web of lies that they weave together when they practice to deceive, and they really, truly do become billionaire thieves. Just look at the rich ones, you'll kind of know who your thieves are. You also know the ones that's empowered to be able to work and make a lot of money. And it's really against the feminine that their law system is against. So God says, you were against me, you transgressed my law, right? So what was I going after? We're going after Canadian anthem because there is something there I want to show you. Oh, did that take my camera down? Nope, my camera's still going. I believe. Yes, it's still going. Okay, so we're going to the Canadian anthem here. Okay, Canadian anthem. And you can do this with all the anthems. You can find different things about them. That is the words written in them. Wikipedia. And it's a particular two phrases in the Canadian anthem that they really have reversed as to the way that the Bible teaches it, which is a picture of the heavens that we actually lost. So this is what they say. And though, you embrace it easily because it makes so much sense to us in a law system that has practiced to deceive and steal from a woman, the spirit, and through their thievery has practiced to deceive us. They have practiced to do that. And under the law of heaven, that's illegal. He was not allowed to do that. Yet he chose to do it through pride. So here it says in the Canadian anthem, and if you go on here and you scroll down, you'll find it. It says, "O Canada, beneath thy shining skies may stalwart sons and gentle maidens rise." Well, that's wrong. That's not an image of the heaven that we lost. That's an image of the Sheol that we gained. strong, mighty sons, and gentle, timid maidens. That's what we have under man's law. But what was we actually supposed to have? We know this, don't we? Boom! We got that verse in our mind, don't we? The minute we say that. And we know that they turned everything upside down and told the potter that she had no power over her own creation. In fact, weakening us. Which again takes us to Ezekiel 20, that with the plentiful waters of the mother spirit, which we know is identified as coming from her in passages, and I don't have it up, like Song of Songs 4:12-15, it's to come from the woman. That's where the waters were to come from. And that requires strong scepters for the rule, strong daughters, not weak, timid little maidens that they want to tell you that that's, that's why they wrote it in there. And isn't it so easy to receive it? Doesn't it sound nice? Doesn't it? Especially knowing the ridiculous man-made law system that we know. It enforces this idea of timid, weak, gentle women. Because God knows you can't be strong and gentle at the same time, can you? And stalwart sons. Okay, one more time. Let's define stalwart right quick. Define stalwart. Loyal, reliable, hardworking. A loyal, reliable, and hardworking supporter or team. Worth. Stalwart has the idea of strongly built and sturdy, right? That's, again, they have it reversed. They really do. Because of the verse that we find in Psalm 144, verse 12. This is an image of the heavens that we lost. That our sons may be as plants grown up in their youth. Some says tender plants. Gentle sons. That's what we were to have. Gentle sons, like well-nurtured plants. And our daughters will be like pillars, carved to adorn a palace. That our sons may be as plants grown up in their youth. That our daughters may be as cornerstones, polished after the similitude of a palace. That's a picture of the heavens that we lost. Gentle sons and strong daughters. They have it reversed in the Canadian anthem, in my opinion. They really do. It should absolutely read the opposite to what they've got. But it makes sense to our tiny little brains raised up under a law of iniquity. Iniquity is shaped by this law system, which is a blood system, which is why you can be stained in blood. You lift your hands up to the heavens in bloodshed. That's why you get the parting of the Red Sea, which is also allegorized as a wine in the cup that you drink down. When you're worshiping a male idol, you're going to have a blood system. You are. You're worshiping an idol. Neither male nor female. Because the sons had too much pride to receive the law off of her tongue. Which is why we have to have strong scepters for the rule. Anyway. So, that's the video for today, my dear sisters, my dear brethren. I hope you all are blessed with an abundance of truth. I hope you all have a lovely day. And thank you so much for watching.